Yuriko, the Tiger's Shadow, versus Samut, Voice of Dissent. Noteworthy that we're up against Jolt 539 was on the EDH lounge a few days ago, so it'll be good to face up against Jolt again. I have to mulligan that hand because we don't have any lands in hand. That isn't superb, but we have a Serum Vision, so we can hopefully we'll get something going with that. Yeah, we'll just set things off with our Serum Visions. We get to draw a card and scry 2. We get into a negate, which isn't necessarily terrible. We'll get the land on the bottom. Paradoxical outcome. No, we want to get into some small creatures with Yuriko, the Tiger's Shadow. She has Ninjutsu of Demir, a 1/3. Whenever a ninja you control deals combat damage to a player, reveal the top card of your library and put that card into your hand. Each opponent loses life equal to that card's CMC. And Samut, Voice of Dissent, can be very explosive. A Naya commander for 3 and Gruel. It's a 3/4 with Flash, Double Strike, Vigilance and Haste. Other creatures you control have Haste. And then for white and tap, untap another target creature. Okay, Ornithopter is exactly the type of thing we want to get into. It's a shame that we didn't get into that last turn though, but never mind. We'll get down the Mutavault just to get Summoning Sickness off of it. And then we will cast Ornithopter. And now it's just a case of holding up negate if our opponent wants to ramp at all, which they may well want to do in Naya colours. Then we can certainly contemplate a negate there. We don't want to shut our opponent out of actually playing Magic though. It doesn't make for a very fun video in my opinion. Getting down the Naya Panorama and sacking the Naya Panorama. Search for a basic mountain, forest or plains. And noteworthy that the cost of Samut is Gruel, red and green, but because she has a white activated mana cost, that means that she is actually Naya and not a Gruel commander. So if any of you are newer to EDH and you don't understand the difference between a mana cost and a colour identity, then that is the difference. Okay, we've got a Skull Snatcher as well. Yeah, well we can get that down next turn. For right now, we're going to go in for Yuriko. So we swing in with our Ornithopter and wait for Jolt to declare blockers, which he obviously can't declare blockers because he doesn't have any. We'll get down Yuriko. And that will, actually, we never want to auto-yield to this because sometimes we want to do something on the stack. Okay, Filth will be okay if we get into, what is it called? Yawgmoth's, not Yawgmoth's Will. Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth, that makes all lands swamps. And Filth will give all of our creatures Swamp Walk as long as it's in the graveyard. Okay, and there's the Cultivate that we were thinking we were going to see. Luckily for our opponent, we can't negate that. Not sure if we would anyway, because we want to get going as quickly as possible, especially against a Naya deck such as this one. Okay, there's our Sol Ring. Let's swing in first and see what we draw into. I want to get down that Skull Snatcher. Skull Snatcher is a ninja, so that will allow us to... Actually, let's just read this and exile 2 cards from the graveyard. Yep, we can certainly do that. So let's wait for blockers to be declared, and then we will bounce the Ornithopter, getting the Skull Snatcher. This will trigger Yuriko twice because these two are ninjas. And we'll get to exile these 2 cards. I doubt our opponent will be making much use of those, but you never know. Okay, Lightning Greaves as well. Isn't terrible. We reveal an extra turn card. We're not going to be making use of that, I don't think, but we can reveal it off the top of our library if we get into shenanigans whereby we can manipulate the top card of our library. So let's go for Ornithopter, Lightning Greaves onto Yuriko. And I think that's it. We can just hold up a negate there. And actually, I think I'd rather protect the Ornithopter. We don't care if Yuriko goes back into the command zone. But I would like to keep the Ornithopter around because it's so good with shenanigans in this deck. Yeah, so if we get into a Brainstorm or a Scroll Rack, means of putting this back on top of our library, then we can keep revealing it with Yuriko, and every time we do, we will deal 7 damage to our opponent with this. Don't need to get into the top deck shenanigans though, because Miri's Guile. Yeah, I'll let our opponent have that. Yeah, we don't need to get into the top deck shenanigans, it just really helps get out a faster win. Oh, Smothering Tithe is a big no-no. Definitely don't want to see Smothering Tithe. Although Yuriko doesn't count as card draw, so it's not necessarily as good against us as it might be in other decks. But still, I don't want to see a Smothering Tithe. Okay, and we've got a Mana Drain as well. I'm just wondering if we need to get that Filth down or not. I think we're okay to get Filth down. Yeah, let's go for Filth, and we can hold up Mana Drain. I think we've pretty much got this one in the bag. So we'll swing in with everything, including Ornithopter, just in case our opponent wants to get rid of Yuriko. Not likely that they'll do that without any mana, but it's a good habit to get into. We can still ninjutsu in response once Yuriko's been knocked out of play by bouncing the Ornithopter, as long as it's swinging in. We get into Supreme Will and a Swamp. So we'll get to play that Swamp and therefore hold up the Supreme Will. And then let's get the Greaves back on the Ornithopter. And we'll throw it back to Jolt and see if he's got anything for us. We can counter some kind of board wipe, luckily. Although I'll need an extra white mana, really, to get into a board wipe, unless he has Chain Reaction or Blasphemous Act, something of that nature. Okay, well, getting into more white mana has to come down tapped because there's a Shock Land. Our opponent doesn't want to take any more damage, but looks like they're just passing the turn and letting us get out the win right now. So we'll get down the Swamp and then get straight down to swinging in. We have enough damage on board without the Yuriko triggers. And there we go. Yeah, pretty fast win there. Pretty obnoxious win over our opponent, but that's what Yuriko does. She gets out fast wins, and yeah, unfortunately, Jolt was on the receiving end of that today. Hope you all enjoyed it. See you in the next one. Okay, we're going to go for another game, a rematch, because, yeah, we'll keep this hand, because that was a pretty obnoxious start by Yuriko. We got off a pretty fast win on our opponent, and Samut wants to get ramp in the early game in order to get Samut out as quick as possible, but once she is out, she can get damage nailed on really quickly, so we have to try and keep her out of play if we can. And we'll drop our island and go in for Preordain, scry 2 and draw. Lands, do we need... Yeah, do we need that? We'll get rid of one land, but go for a Verdant Catacombs. I think that's okay. Just going to hope that we draw into more lands naturally. Alright, a couple of fetches in play, and our opponent isn't allowing us to see what colours they're going for. And we just draw into the Underground Sea. That was going to be the search target for the Verdant Catacombs. I think we will go for... Yeah, we're not going to be able to hold up Negate, but I'll go for Viscerous Seer, just in case we're going to be able to swing in and get Yuriko out next turn. Viscerous Seer is sack a creature and scry 1. We can use this to sacrifice our Yuriko to get her out again with Commander Ninjutsu. That can help you get around blockers and things like that. And it also gets you out from underneath things like Lignify, things that enchant your commander. So it's a useful creature to have, but right now we're aiming to, wow, and a third fetch for Jolt. Yeah, we're looking to swing in with this next turn and cheat out Yuriko. It does depend entirely on whether or not our opponent gets a blocker down, though. It doesn't look like they're going for the cultivate, which is fine with me. Yeah, before we make a land drop, I want to... We might go for that creeping tar pit. Let's just swing in with Viscerous Seer. I don't know if Naya has many flash creatures that we need to worry about at 3 mana. Suppose we'll soon find out though. So we're going to get out Yuriko and bounce the Viscerous Seer. And then we'll see what we draw into. Okay, it's just a land. Now then, do we want to get out the Viscerous Seer again? I don't really want to discard much. Yeah, we're a few turns off the Creeping Tar Pit being relevant, so we'll just get down Viscerous Seer again. And we are up to a full grip there, so we don't have to discard. And starting to crack the fetches by the looks of it, probably getting down tap lands or shock lands of some form. Yep, there's one shock land in Sacred Foundry. The Creeping Tar Pit is a manland from World Wake, and for 3 mana you can turn it into a 3/2 unblockable, which is obviously really good with Yuriko. Only really good towards the late game. Don't know really how good it is in 1v1, but I'm hoping, never actually used it, but in the late game I'm hoping we'll be able to use it to get Yuriko out. Unfortunately it does mean that you'll have to replay a tap land, which kind of sets you back on mana. But if you can replay it the turn that you bounce it, then you're set up again for the next turn if you have the mana to pour into things like that. Okay, Oracle of Muldiah really getting the ramp plan down and getting more luck than we tend to with the Oracle of Muldiah, a land off the top, along with a scry. Intrigued to see if they actually want to see that Guardian project or not. This is card draw for Commander, basically. Okay, Scroll Rack isn't awful, so why don't we try? We can risk going in with Viscerous Seer here and hoping that Oracle blocks the Yuriko. What do we want here? Why don't we just go for a Scroll Rack activation? We could try that. So let's go Scroll Rack, and then we'll get down a Polluted Delta, and we'll go for Scroll Rack. Now the only thing I really care about here is Negate and Limdal's Vault, so we'll put Island, Creeping Tar Pit. Yeah, we already have another fetch in hand, so we can get rid of that. That's just a shuffle effect to get rid of the top cards of our library. Yeah, I don't care about Limdal's Vault or Snapcaster Mage because we don't have anything in our hand that we care about flashbacking. So let's get rid of the negate. Yeah, we'll get rid of everything there, just so we can get down the Mist-Cloaked Herald. And then I'm not going to bother swinging in with anything. What we could do is swing in with both these two. I mean, we can't do it now because we don't have the mana, but I decided not to risk it. What we could have done there was swung in with both Yuriko and Viscerous Seer in the hope that our opponent would block Yuriko, then sack Yuriko to the Viscerous Seer, and then bounce Viscerous Seer to ninjutsu and get it around that Oracle of Muldiah. It would have meant putting 3 mana into replaying Yuriko and Viscerous Seer, but it would have got us into a Yuriko trigger at least, but it's a lot of hoops to jump through just to get that going. Now we need to decide if we want to block the Samut or not. I don't think we really care about that. Yeah, we'll block with Yuriko, because Yuriko, we never have to pay command attacks on her. That command ninjutsu of 2 is always going to be 2. The only caveat being that we need to be able to swing in every turn, which we are going to be able to, as long as we keep our Mist-Cloaked Herald in play. Okay, Mana Vault, Mutavault even. Do we want to get Summoning Sickness away from that? Well, we can get down Consign to Oblivion. We can get that on top of our library. Get some damage off on our opponent, so let's try that first of all. We'll also get some other cards on top of our library that we don't care about. And that can't be blocked, obviously, so we will go in for Yuriko for the Commander Ninjutsu. And that will block. Then we'll Scroll Rack. And we'll put a load of this stuff on top. How about the Tainted Isle, Paradoxical Outcome. Don't think we need Mana Crypt, really. Definitely want that on top. And then we'll keep the Mutavault. Yeah, we'll go for that. Tainted Isle, Paradoxical Outcome. We're going to shuffle most of these away, but we want to reveal this because it's the biggest CMC. And therefore, we'll deal the most damage. And we get into Ornithopter, which is really nice. And we'll use our Bloodstained Mire to shuffle those cards away because we don't care about keeping those around. And we also get into a Liliana Vess, which means we can reveal something really big off the top if we want to. Let's just go for a Swamp. I'm trying to take the least amount of damage as possible because Samut can really pile on the pain. And we must remember to get the Mist-Cloaked Herald down as well. Although, do we want that? We don't necessarily care about that. No, we'll keep that in hand. I don't want to overextend. Our opponent might go in for a board wipe. And we want to be able to recoup at least a little bit. Now, what we can do, because we have Liliana Vess, we can actually return a non-land permanent to its owner's hand in Samut. That will force our opponent to pay 5 mana to get that going again. They can pour all their resources into Rogue's Passage here to make Samut unblockable. But in response to that, we can bounce the Samut and then they won't be able to replay it until next turn. That's not as bad as it might be because this commander has haste. You can really get some good tempo plays off on your opponent doing plays like that, but if they have haste, it's not as good. Smothering Tithe makes a return from last game. Luckily Yuriko doesn't draw, it just reveals and puts it into your hand. Now what I'd love them to do here is pay more than 5 mana to do something, which it looks like they are doing. Okay, and that has haste. Yeah, that's a pain. But what are they going to exile? They're probably going to get rid of the Scroll Rack. Because they have this floating mana, they can pay to get down Samut again straight away. But it's going to have haste, so they're going to get to exile something here. Just going to have to allow it, I think. I think they're going after Scroll Rack. But if we let them go through to the combat phase, yep, they're getting rid of Scroll Rack. That's fair enough. Oh, and then they get to untap as well. Well, that costs them mana, so that means that we can now bounce Samut, and this won't have it won't have haste anymore, so when it untaps they won't be able to do anything with it. And now they don't have the mana to get down Samut until next turn, so they sort of take a turn off there. But I think we sequenced that quite well. I'm sure they can do something else with the mana, but they can't get down Samut unless they have some more mana acceleration in hand. Okay, they just go for the Guardian Project. We saw that on top of their library previously. Now I think we need to sacrifice the Viscera Seer, or sacrifice Yuriko with the Viscera Seer so that we can get it through with Ornithopter. Because currently we can't get through that Oracle of Muldiah. So let's sacrifice it. We scry 1, we don't want to see a swamp, so we'll throw that on the bottom. Okay, negate. Yeah, okay, and what is this? Target opponent discards 2 cards, don't really care about that. Yeah, if we go for Ancient Tomb, we can Liliana Vess and Yuriko. And Liliana Vess will allow us, it'll distract our opponent potentially. And it will also allow us to pile on some big damage to our opponent. We search our library for a card and put it on top. Got Temporal Mastery, which we could get down next turn actually. Yeah, I think we just go for this because it's a lot of damage. Rags to Riches is usually the card we go for. So let's go through to combat. The Ornithopter swings in. And then I take my finger off the pass priority button just in case I accidentally press that. And we go Commander Ninjutsu. And bounce the Ornithopter. We reveal Rags to Riches. I think that's what it's called, isn't it? Yeah, Rags to Riches. And then we get down the Ornithopter again. And we are probably going to block with the Viscerous Seer and sacrifice Yuriko in response so that we can swing in with Ornithopter and cheat her out again next turn, assuming that our opponent goes for their commander this turn, which I imagine they will. They're going to be gunning for Liliana Vess, I imagine. We can put something on top again with Liliana Vess to try and get that damage through, but luckily Mana Crypt has just bolted our opponent, so he's looking like he's in pretty dire straits currently, unfortunately. Yep, down comes the Samut. None of the... well, we only have Negate in hand, so we couldn't have countered that anyway. And then Guardian Project. And then down come a couple of lands with Oracle of Muldiah. And another land on top. Oh, and they have enough mana to Rogue's Passage now. If Jolt wants to do that, then he certainly can. That will get rid of Liliana Vess. Okay, Rancor going on to Samut. That's an extra 4 points of damage currently. I'm wondering if they're going for commander damage onto us. Although, it doesn't have Trample, does it? Oh no, it does have Trample from the Rancor, so yeah, our chump blocking tactic isn't going to work. Might be able to get a lot of damage onto us. Yeah, they're going straight in at us. So there's not a whole lot of point in chump blocking here because of that Trample. Well, we'll soon find out. Hopefully Jolt doesn't win by 21 commander damage exactly, because that'll mean that the Viscerous Seer would have kept that up. So that is +2/+2 makes it a 5, 6, 7. That's 14 commander damage, because Samut does have double strike. Shows how much you can pile on the damage really quickly with Samut. Just one turn and a couple of, 3 mana extra into Samut, and already we're up to near enough lethal commander damage. Let's sacrifice Yuriko again to Viscerous Seer. Don't mind drawing into another ninja. Don't think we're going to be using it, but okay, and we will go for another search with Liliana Vess. And we'll just go for Dig Through Time. We've already got enough damage on our opponent, so we don't want to drag the game out any longer than it needs to be. Or I think we do. Might have spot removal for us. Going for Yuriko, Ornithopter, the usual trick. And then damage, and we reveal our Dig Through Time. Yeah, so a much closer game that time round. Samut really piling on the damage quickly, like I said she can. The double strike and haste is really relevant with her. And when you're up against weenies like we have in this deck, just putting Rancor onto her for a single mana and giving her Trample makes all the difference. Plus, lots of mana into a Rogue's Passage. Yeah, probably, yeah, I think we were definitely looking at a loss there. Because I don't think we had any means of... I suppose we could have tutored with Liliana for spot removal on the Samut, but could have easily gotten her out again and then put the Rancor onto her again. So yeah, might have been looking at a loss either way, no matter what we did. But that was Jolt's Samut deck. You'll most likely be seeing that on the same day that I release this. So yeah, you can see it from either one of our perspectives, either from Samut's perspective or Yuriko's perspective, whichever commander you were rooting for. Hope you all enjoyed it. I'm tribalkai on the EDH channel. Thank you for watching.